Ukraine throughout the course of the war has been heavily invested in documenting what they believe are war crimes. And based on the letter of the law, this would qualify as such. Now it's a lengthy investigation process and legal determinations are required. That being said, we really have seen a recklessness, a disregard even from Russian forces as they attack these targets that aren't, as you said, aren't military targets. These are areas heavily populated by civilians. And this strike in particular took place in a village of about 300 people. And so when we're talking about a death toll of 50 in a village of 300, we're talking, about a sixth of the village wiped out in one strike.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, there's been another Russian attack on Ukrainian civilians. Talk a little bit about this latest incident and why it's so concerning.
Earlier today, we saw, the latest Russian strike, and it took place, in the city of Kharkiv, and it hit a grocery store and a cafe. Tragically, the death toll is right now around 50 people. There's still recovery efforts ongoing at this point, so that number could increase. But this really has been one of the worst attacks, outside of the front lines, dating back the entirety of the war. It brings back memories of a strike in early 2022 that hit a railway station. And so the level of devastation, the death toll really sort of brings up some pretty horrifying images right now. And we're seeing, like usual when these strikes occur, a lot of outrage from Ukrainian officials as well as Western officials overall.
Sure. So, attacks on grocery stores, cafes, apartment buildings, railway stations, bridges, all of these things, they're clearly not military targets. So this raises the prospect of war crimes allegations, no?
Absolutely. And so Ukraine throughout the course of the war has been heavily invested in documenting what they believe are war crimes. And based on the letter of the law, this would qualify as such. Now it's a lengthy investigation process and legal determinations are required. That being said, we really have seen a recklessness, a disregard even from Russian forces as they attack these targets that aren't, as you said, aren't military targets. These are areas heavily populated by civilians. And this strike in particular took place in a village of about 300 people. And so when we're talking about a death toll of 50 in a village of 300, we're talking, about a sixth of the village wiped out in one strike. And so it really is hard to fathom.
So we've seen some major changes on Capitol Hill. We've had House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has been removed from his job as we're filming this. His replacement hasn't been chosen. How might that affect U.S. aid to Ukraine?
That's one of the big questions right now. Depending on who former Speaker McCarthy's replacement is, we could see someone who is more willing to provide aid to Ukraine or less willing. We know Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio has thrown his name in the ring, and so he has said, pretty strongly that he's not in favor of continuing aid. He's gone as far to say the House needs an America First speaker, not a Ukrainian First speaker, and so this really could be fundamental. This decision, which member of the Republican Party gets the speakership, could be fundamental in continuing U.S. aid to Ukraine. And we've seen, as Congress averted a shutdown last week, the issue of giving additional funding to Ukraine is very much front and center on Capitol Hill right now.
Right. So even before McCarthy was ousted as Speaker, in the whole funding of the government situation where there was the risk of the shutdown, Ukraine has become a real point of division, especially among House Republicans.
That's exactly right. We're seeing House Republicans that couldn't be more diametrically opposed within the party. You see people like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who doesn't think the U.S. should continue aiding Ukraine at all. Not just limit it, but stop it altogether. Whereas you see some more establishment and traditional Republicans like Congressman Michael McCaul from Texas, who is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, not only say the U.S. needs to continue aiding Ukraine, President Biden needs to be doing more, needs to be giving more advanced weaponry, needs to train them on it, needs to give them everything Ukraine needs to win, not just prevent a loss. And so even as we look at the Ukrainian counteroffensive, we've seen Ukraine reclaim over 50% of the land that Russia conquered in the first year. And so Ukraine has been making headway, albeit very slowly, and at a significant cost. That being said, it's unclear if they will continue having support from the U.S. militarily to the same extent or at all.
And clearly, though, the Biden administration is still pressing for there to be continued aid for Ukraine.
Absolutely. We have seen the U.S. try and even get creative. Earlier this week, the Department of Defense announced that it transferred weapons that were seized from Iran and provided to Ukraine. And this was really somewhat of a workaround because this went through a forfeiture claim by the Department of Justice and was not allocated through Congress.
Right.
And so the Pentagon has been hesitant to say whether or not this is an avenue they'll pursue again or whether or not they can. But it's unclear exactly how DoD will move forward without knowing what's to come from Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.